If you do need to ask any burning questions throughout the presentation, please use the hand up function, but we will have lots of time for questions at the end if you prefer to wait until then. And I will take a sneaky screenshot for reporting purposes at some stage during the call today. So today we're going to be hearing from two presenters. First up will be Rohan Swan, Program Manager at Keep Australia Beautiful Council WA. He's going to run us through some of the programs, awards and upcoming funding opportunities available to community land care through KABC WA. And we'll also be hearing from Pippa Gauden, Community Development Lead for WA Return Recycle Renew Limited WARRRL, which is Containers for Change WA, to learn more about this organisation and their container deposit scheme that's available, how to set up a scheme number and bring in some passive income to help with projects in your community. I also wanted to mention that WA Landcare Network sponsor the Environmental Education Award as part of the Tidy Towns Sustainable Community Awards, and we are very proud to have a partnership with KABC to be able to provide that award to the community in Western Australia. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce you first to Rohan. Thanks, Ro.
No worries, thanks, Casey. We're coming to you from Wajak Noongar Budja today, down near Fremantle. I'm just going to share my screen. This is, of course, where everything could go haywire because tech doesn't usually like me, but here we go. Okay, just make sure I'm on the right screen. Right, what can you guys see?
Perfect, Rohan.
Okay, cool. Okay, so Casey's asked me to talk to you about our community litter grants plus some of our other programs. I'll go through the community litter grants first, but basically we have a pool of money that is available for litter prevention projects, and some of the pictures there, some of the actions that you can see. So basically the grant round opens on the 11th of April and closes on the 20th of May. So we've got probably another 6 weeks to apply, so it gives you plenty of time. We have grants of up to $10,000. We used to do smaller grants for $5,000 for local area projects and $10,000 for bigger projects, but we're finding that the effort to do a $5,000 grant is the effort to do a $500 grant is often just as much as effort as doing a $10,000 grant. So we only have a small pot of money. So we thought, well, we're probably better off handing out fewer bigger grants and lots of little grants. So we've upped it to everybody's eligible to apply for up to $10,000, and they're designed to support projects from July 2024, so the start of the new financial year, through to May 2025. But there is plenty of scope in that to be flexible and extensions and things like that. So don't not apply because you're not going to finish by May 2025. But one thing is, it is actually designed to cater for new initiatives, not to support ongoing projects. So that's one of our criteria. Quite important to know that the Community Litter Grants funds litter prevention programs, reduction and education programs. It does not fund waste or recycling initiatives. There's plenty of other funding out there for that. And we do get a lot of applications that come in that don't fit our criteria, and all our guidelines and everything on our website, which I'll go through later. But even within that quite specific guideline of litter grants for litter prevention, you can get quite imaginative and innovative, and we actually really encourage that. You can see the picture there of the little boat. Well, that's a crew called EcoSurf Australia, and they applied for a grant to buy a recycled plastic boat with an electric engine that they pot around the Swan River picking up rubbish and things like that. So it's not, you can be quite innovative about what you want to apply for. Having said that, it's really kind of important to distinguish between what litter and waste are, because there is some confusion. Even people that work in that industry get confused about what litter and waste is. So I'm just going to play you a little funky video, which it's a bit school-based because it's put together by Sam, our schools coordinator, but it does really clearly show the difference between waste and litter. And it's got a funky tune with it as well. So I hope this works too. So here we go. I'll just play this first and then have a bit of a chat after that. Okay, so is there any burning questions about that little video that was unclear or that need clarification? I mean, but essentially what we're talking about with litter is waste that's not controlled, and that's just free to be in the environment. So that's what we talk about when we talk about litter in our context. So I'll just move on. I mean, the question where if you're thinking about applying for a grant with us is, do the areas you work in have a litter problem? I mean, we've been working with Perth NRM quite a lot, and they say a lot of the places they go to do regeneration work and some rewilding stuff is all impacted by litter. They work a lot in wetlands and in beaches and things like that. So we fund projects that assist in the reduction of provincial litter, or projects that fund educational events and activities that address litter and its impact. So if where you work have impacts from litter, then this is probably a really good spot to get some extra funding to do that extra work, because I do know that it does frustrate people that are in that Landcare area in terms of some of the impacts of litter. So yeah. Our project assessment criteria, every grant funding has project criteria. We look at 5 different criteria for our stuff. It's litter research and data, so it's what you know about the issue. The scope of the project is what you plan to do about it. Partnerships are who you're going to be working with. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to be working with someone else. The cost effectiveness, unfortunately, the world we exist in, everything's down to the cost effectiveness of the dollar. I mean, if you look at that boat, I think that boat was probably about $8,000. If they were going to be collecting 20 kilograms of rubbish a year, it's probably not cost effective. But if they're collecting 20 tons of litter a year, then it probably is. So those are the sort of things to consider when you're funding. And importantly, how you measure the effectiveness of your program in evaluation. That's probably one thing, and I'll touch on it a bit later as well, is that a lot of people who apply for our grants, they overlook that section and don't give it the attention that it needs. So that's an important factor in our grant assessment criteria. So if we're looking at researching the issue, what we do with our projects and what we encourage people to do when they're applying for grant is do some research on the issue. So, what is it? What litter is what litter is it? Is it construction waste? Is it fast food takeaway? Is it household waste and things? Where is it? Is it in sand dunes? Is it in a riverbed? Is it just around a new development or something like that? What's it made of? What is the litter made of? Is it plastic? Is it glass? Is it ceramics? Is it, like I said, is it rocks and rubble from building sites and things like that? And how much of it is there? I mean, is there considerable amounts? Is there just a little bit of it? And what it's made of is what it's consists of is lots of little pieces, or is a few big pieces? And probably really importantly in terms of developing the scope of your project is how it's getting there. Are people putting it there? Is it being blown there by wind? Is it a function of some activity that's going on around it? Like we often find that around fast food restaurants, there's a lot more litter than where there's not a fast food restaurant, things like that. So what are the factors that are causing it to get there? And that'll go into your grant application. Providing data is really important. Taking photographs, carrying out a survey to identify an area and identify your problem. And one of the best ways of doing that, and this is one thing that we do a lot, and I know Tangaroa Blue does it as well. They've got a really, really big database, is conducting a litter audit. So instead of just collecting the litter and making the area clean, actually divide it up into its components and things like that. And you can do that really simply by just dividing it into the category of material that it's made of, or you can go into a more deeper depth about items and things like that. And if you wanted to do that as part of your pre-application stuff, we can provide assistance there in terms of advice and resources and tools to do that. So if you've never done anything like that before, we've got the skills and the advice to help you do that. The scope of the project, and you're probably aware of the ATACT, or some of you may be aware of the ATACT principle of specifying your project. I don't know where you are, but it's basically a thing that looks at the audience, the target, the action, the context, and time. And I will be providing all of this information to Casey, so that if you want to get copies of the words and everything, we can do that. But to sort of spell that out, I'll go through an example for you that we had just recently. So specifying the project, the issue was builders waste blowing into sand dunes from a land development. Now that's kind of happening kind of everywhere at the moment. It's particularly up in the northern suburbs of Perth. So the audience is, who do you want to perform the behaviour? So who you want to act on? Well, we want to act on builders. Okay. The target is what is the subject of the behaviour? In this case, it was cement bags. There was hundreds of cement bags blowing off building sites in easterly winds and ending up in sand dunes on the beach. So, oops, I pressed twice, so we can just do that anyway. I can't go backwards. What is done to the target? And we want them to place it in site bins, and we want them to do it on building sites. So that's the what you want them to do and the where you want them to do. So that's the action and the context. And when do we want to do it? Well, we want them to do it all the time. So therefore, then with doing those, and they're quite simple questions to ask, you end up with a statement that says something like, we want to get builders to place cement bags in site bins on building sites all the time to prevent them from blowing into adjacent sand dunes. So it's a really good way of kind of simplifying how you're going to get to what your project actually is. So we encourage that, and there's a bit more information about that that you can get online. It's a really good system that we use. So that's the ATACT system. So, and I'm happy to take questions on that later. The partnership section, they're useful and they're important, but they're not essential. You're not going to not get funded because you're working by yourself. And sometimes there isn't any partners and everything like that. But one thing that it's often important to do is make yourself aware of other litter prevention campaigns that may be happening by other organisations in the same area. A lot of people don't do that, and then they start working on it. They realise, oh, somebody's already come in and cleaned this up, and they find out that the local school every month comes in and does some action in there. So looking at your local government, other community groups and schools. And if you do find that and you do have a project, talk to them about it and get written support from them. That goes a long way to helping your grant application. And linking your project to the Keep Australia Beautiful Litter Prevention Strategy, you can get that online. And I think there's a number of objectives within that, and there's a number of actions and tasks underneath that. So if you can link what you're doing to the objectives and the actions under the litter prevention strategy, that goes a long way to strengthening your application as well. Like I said, we've got a limited amount of money, and we do get quite a lot of applications, so it's quite competitive. So the more you can do to strengthen your application by linking it to the things that we already are doing and that we have to achieve under targets that are set by government, it's really, really good, really strengthens your application. And like I said, all this information I'll give to Casey so she can farm it out to you guys as well. And again, I'll re-emphasize the importance of the evaluation process. Like I said, a lot of people that apply for funding with us, they overlook this section. And because the grants are so competitive, I'm not saying that to scare you off either, that they're competitive. Just saying you've only got a certain amount of money, you can't fund everything, well, as much as we'd like to. Now the key component for assessment is what your evaluation tools and what your evaluation process are going to be. And if you're not sure about that, then the grants office can help you design those as well. So you're not on your own in this grant application process. It's not like, here's the grant application process, go and do it. We can actually help you through that grant application and give you advice about what to put in there and those sort of things. So And it's not a it's a two-way process rather than a one-way process. And a lot of grant applications are a one-way process that you get given the criteria and that's it, and you're on your own sort of thing. Well, we tend to like to work with our applicants to make sure they put in a good application. You can find some examples of previous recipients on our webpage as well. So going to community leader grants, and there's lots of information, lots of ideas and inspiration in there as well. And a lot of them are really innovative too, which is really something we really appreciate. Is, you know, we sit there and we go, how can we never thought of that? You know, so, and some of them are really, really interesting. The key resource for you is our webpage. We're now under the boring wa.gov.au banner. So everything's black and white now rather than colourful. But we've managed to keep some colour on ours, which is quite good. We had to fight for that, but we've got it. Just to go back a step, KBC is a statutory authority that is housed within the Department of Water and Environmental Regulation. So we're not a government department. We're a statutory authority that has administrative services provided by a government department. So that's why we come under that wa.gov.au banner. But that website is freely available. Basically, if you go onto a web browser and you either type in KABC or in this case, community leader grants, you're more than likely, in fact, you'll come up to that page. So it's quite simple to find us on the web. So just a quick recap. The submissions are open until the 20th of May. They open on the 11th of April. If you go there now, the apply now button doesn't work. But on the 11th of April, which is Wednesday, I think, correct? That link will work, and you can start using Smarty Grants to do it. We are kind of on both sides of the fence. We apply for funding, plus we provide funding, so we understand the nuances of applying and providing funding. So we try to make it as easy as we possibly can, because both sides can get pretty complex at times. So we try to provide a service that's really easy to use both ways. So, and our webpage, and as like I said, grants of up to $10,000 are available for litter prevention projects. And I will stress that it's litter prevention, not recycling of waste projects. And there's the contacts there that you'll be able to access through Casey. So, are there any questions before I start? How am I going for time, Casey?
You're going good for time, Rohan. I just want to ask a couple of quick questions.
Yep, no worries.
What is your acquittal process like? Is it quite simple?
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, it's not arduous.
Yep.
It's quite simple. Generally, it's providing evidence what you spent the money on, and some results. So it's not a massive acquittal process like some grants are. We have to.
Yeah, I think that's what I like about this grant so much, is that it's so accessible to smaller groups and it's manageable, which is fantastic.
We don't expect a massive report or anything like that. Like some, there's probably, I think there's like a reporting page, and it's fill a box in sort of thing like that. So it's, you know, under 100 words sort of kind of.
Great.
It's not an arduous acquittal process, which I know can scare people off.
Do you fund infrastructure and signage type projects?
Yeah, as long as it's litter related, as long as it's litter related.
Okay, great.
I think the initial phase of the reel it in bins, have you seen those around the place? I'm pretty sure that was part of a litter grant. So yeah, but like I will qualify that by saying yes, we do, as long as it's specifically litter related. I think I think we did some litter signage down in Rockingham that we provided grant funding for. So yeah, yes, we do.
Right. Any questions from the floor? Anyone want to ask Rohan any questions at this stage?
Yes, Mike here. Just confirming, if you've been collecting litter for 20 years as part of your Coast Care project, you don't qualify because it's ongoing work.
Look, yeah, good question, Michael. Like it depends how you frame it, I guess. There probably is some. Well, I guess what we're saying is, if you've got a project where you've built signage, put up, and all sorts of things like that, and you've been doing it for 5 years, and you want to rehash the signage or something like that, we might not fund it. But It depends how you frame it in the application. I'm not sure I'm answering that very well.
Yeah, and a secondary question, I assume you have to be an incorporated group, is that right?
Yeah, or be auspiced by someone who has an
Yes.
ABN. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Michael, can you remind me which group you're with again?
Friends of Sorrento Beach and Marmy and
That's
Forthall.
right.
We look after 2.5 kilometres of coast, and there's every sort of litter on it, from builders' litter to people not using bins to marine debris.
Yeah, look, in terms of your question, Michael, if you could frame it that there's and that you're doing something different, or that there's something different on the beaches, or that it's never been kind of action before other than people walking along, picking up litter as an individual or something like that. Look, there is scope to provide funding for those sort of things as long as there's something new happening, I guess, is what I'm saying.
Perhaps Michael can reach out to you or Shirley offline, Rowan, and just get some clarification there.
Yeah, that would be, and yeah, so sorry, Michael, I'm not really answering your question very well. Shirley, the community litter grants coordinator, will be able to answer that far more eloquently than I have. So yeah, so my apologies.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're doing anything new. The litter problems existed for the last 20 years.
And
it hasn't changed that much.
The fact that nobody's funded litter collections on Sorrento Beach might be enough. So,
yeah.
And depending on what you're doing and how you're doing, you might say, in the past we've used our hands and bread bags to say we need some pickup tools and things like that. So it's slightly different way of managing it. And if you were to, like, say, involve the what would that be? Is that City of Joondalup or City of
Warren? Yeah.
Yes, involving the City of Joondalup somehow, that might go a long way as well. So, but yeah, reach out to us and we can discuss it offline.
Yeah, we have had dealings with City of Joondalup to get more bins in and to keep the bins on the beaches for longer. We've had a lot of that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's all been on a totally volunteer basis.
Yeah. Look, contact us offline when you get the details, and if Shirley's not available because she's actually away at the moment, but we can discuss it a bit further. So
that would be great, Rowan. Jenny, what about you? Have you got any questions, or Carrie? No, not at this stage. Okay, Ro, do you want to keep going?
Okay, I was just going to quickly touch on our Tidy Town Sustainable Communities program. That what do you call yourself? WLAN, or what is it?
WA Landcare Network.
Landcare. That they provide some support for one of the awards. But if you're in a regional community, the projects that you're doing in environmental or heritage or litter or anything like that could be entered in as projects into our Sustainable Communities Awards. So regional communities are able to enter. It's not open to metropolitan communities, unfortunately. And that opens on the 19th of May and the 23rd of August. But there's also our Adopt a Spot program, where we provide support for groups that regularly clean up areas. So, Michael, that might be an area we can provide you with assistance as well. So, but all of that information is on our website. So www.kabc.wa.gov.au, or just put KABC into your web browser and you'll probably end up with us. So, and Casey's got those contact details anyway. So.
And award nominations and wins are also a nice little sweetener when you're applying for grants as well. So if you want to celebrate the work that you're doing in your patch, applying for these awards is a really good idea. They look great on grant applications.
Well, I don't have anything else, Casey. So
okay, thank you, Rowan. That was great. Always good to learn a little bit more about that, and I'm definitely going to go and have a look at previous recipients. That's always a really good way to get a feel for what types of projects have been funded in the past.
And they're really varied as well. So like I was saying, there's lots of really innovative projects. So yeah. So
Yeah, great.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen now.
Thank you.
Asking me to leave the meeting rather than stop sharing.
Uh,
How do I do that? Here we go.
Okay.
Oh no, it's just an okay. Well, I'm going to stop sharing now, Case.
Yep.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening to me.
Thanks, Rowan. That was great. Over to you, Pippa.
Okay, hi everyone. I'm just gonna now share mine. So give me one moment. I knew that would happen. There we go. Come up with that very annoying pop-up again, so I can't hit play. Just give me one moment.
I don't know why it's doing that, Pippa.
Yeah, I've never had it happen before.
Yeah.
We got here. Oh, come on. Before it just sort of went away, and then there we go. Okay, we should be good now. Can
Yeah,
everybody
perfect.
see that? Yeah.
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
All right. So I'm Pippa Gauden. I'm Community Development Lead at WARRRL, which is that very long acronym. Thanks, Casey. But we run the WA Container Deposit Scheme under the Containers for Change brand. So generally, when I'm out and about, I just say I'm Pippa. I work for Containers for Change WA. Basically, Rowan's just done that really great thing of separating waste and litter, and here I am swooshing them back together again. But the scheme, I think, originally it was really developed to target drink containers that were commonly found in litter. So the idea was that, you know, things that are going through recycling in your at-home bin are sort of taken care of. And it was about litter. But I think as time went on and the scheme was launched and the other national schemes have also been launched as well, we know it's a bit more about litter as well. It's had a really great impact on litter, but there's also the bigger issue, which is really around landfill and the containers that don't go through the right recycling avenue and they end up in landfill, causing, you know, a whole lot of issues. They contribute to climate change, but there's impacts on natural areas and water health and human health, not to mention the cost involved. So I think the way that we've been doing waste for a long time has been quite unsustainable. So this is a response to that. So the containers that go through the scheme, because of that original kind of mandate, are drink containers generally, and the idea is that it's things that you would drink out and about outside of the home, and that comes under kind of like a national standards for the container deposit schemes in the country. So that includes plastic and glass bottles, drink containers, also liquid paperboard cartons, so small sort of flavoured milk cartons and things like that, and also steel and aluminium cans. So obviously you can return these to a refund point within our network, and you'll get 10 cents back for each container. And we commenced in October 2020, so we're going about 2.5 years now. Just a bit back to that why, I guess, of why we brought this in WA. So this is the image which I have borrowed from my friends at the Waste Authority, features within the Waste Sorted Schools Guide and now within ours, because I was really grateful this last year. We've partnered with Waste Sorted Schools to develop our own education guide. And it's shows, I guess, the approach. It's commonly recognised as the approach to kind of dealing with the waste issue, and you can see that kind of whilst there's a hierarchy of approaching that, where we sort of sit within that, which is really that material recovery space of reusing, reprocessing, recycling, what can be. So as I mentioned before, drink containers made up a significant amount of litter in WA. It's about 44% before the scheme. I think it's down to around 4 now. Only 3 in 10 of drink containers were actually being recycled prior. So we are around 6.5, close to 7 now. And obviously we want to get everything that's being sold in the state as much as possible back through the scheme, all through the yellow bin, so that it's being recycled. So today, over 3 billion now. We hit 3 million a couple of months back. Have been saved through the scheme. So that's 3 billion containers that have been come back through the scheme, been recycled, and those 10-cent refunds have gone out as well. So although 3 billion, that's total to date, have been saved from landfill, around 530 million a year is still going into landfill. So there's still quite a significant volume out there, and that equates to 53 million in 10-cent returns as well. So there's also that opportunity for fundraisers and groups that are involved, so schools, charities, community groups that want to get involved and do something good for the environment, but also be getting those funds back to their organisation. I've got a past background in community development broadly, but community grants as well. So I know how hard it is to get. I worked for an organisation where we did $500 grants at one point, and the process to get that was, so much. So whilst we celebrate some of the big charities out there that are raising, thousands and thousands of dollars with Containers for Change, I know also just that impact of, $500 for some groups is huge. And to be able to do that by basically collecting rubbish is just excellent. So it's part of the reason why I'm really excited to work here. So today, over 10 million has been raised by community groups, charities and schools in WA through the scheme. So there's over 5,000 registered organisations that are involved. And more than 10 million, and what that means for all of those many groups across the state is just huge. So I think it's really great that we've got that social impact benefit of the scheme in WA as well. And I guess, sorry, I'll just go back to that one a little bit. So it's quite a variation of groups, obviously. So we've got big charities involved who rely quite heavily on, I guess, more donations that just come through. So people going to the refund point and they can just donate funds to that member number and it just goes into that account. We've also got other organisations that are really hands-on with collecting, and they have these huge setups for how they collect containers. Many of them collect for themselves for fundraising, but many of them, those funds go on to other causes. So there's some really great operations where they're collecting, raising funds, and then they distribute that into other programs in their community. One thing I forgot to mention at the start was that I'm actually in a Friends of group myself, so I was excited to do this for that reason, selfishly as well. So that's the Friends of Samphire Cove. We look after a gorgeous little conservation patch down in Halls Head by Mandurah. And we don't have a member number ourselves, don't tell anyone here, but that's because there's a couple of other big environmental groups in our area that collect heavily, so we kind of donate through to them. And I think the Dolphin Rescue Group down there's raised about $10,000, and I know Mandurah Environment and Heritage Group recently merged with Bouvard Coast Care. Bouvard were doing great. They've raised thousands of dollars with the scheme, so that will continue now under Mandurah Environment and Heritage Group. So it's, I find it really rewarding to see that it's having that impact on those local groups. And I know the work that those organisations do in our area through, these really dedicated volunteers as well. So I know that money is going to really great stuff. So if you would like to get involved, jump forward. The first thing an organisation would need to do is just sign up for a member number. It's really easy. You can go onto our website, which is containersforchange.com.au/WA. Make sure you're on the WA one, not the Queensland one, because they also run it as Containers for Change. Sign out for your member number. You will need to link it to an individual account. So it's similar kind of to Facebook and things like that. But you can create one that's basically set up for your running of that organisation's group. It will link to a bank account then, so the organisation's bank account, and then whether you're taking containers to the refund point or whether somebody comes along to the refund point and they want to donate their containers and they use your member number, those funds will go straight into that account. So it's really easy to sign up. It takes literally a couple of minutes. I highly recommend having more than one person in your group sign up. So you can do that, and then you can add, we call it a captain. It's basically like another admin role. You can also add other roles to have visibility of your account that can't actually change the settings and things. So if you just want to add other volunteers, but maybe have a couple of admins, I highly recommend that, because we all know turnover in groups, you know, and so just to make sure you've got that access to your account is really important. Getting others involved. I've talked a little bit about that, but I think, you know, in any group, we know if someone's doing everything, it just gets so much. So the best thing you can do is really split the different work and things around your group. So if there's someone that maybe wants to take the lead on the Containers for Change stuff, is really positive. Everyone can be involved, but you can have that person that's checking the tally and the account, and, you know, finding what they can do to promote it in your area. Deciding your fundraising approach. I think, like I said before, some organisations tend to push heavily on the promotions and getting other people to donate to their member number with their containers. Others, it's more that hands-on collection. I'd say for environmental volunteers, there's always going to be a hands-on element. That's, you know, that's the work that's done. But I would always recommend people to do both. So if you're out there collecting all the time, that's fantastic. But if you've got social media accounts and things like that, put your member number on there, promote it, and get others doing those passive donations. You'd be surprised how many people go to the refund point and they're just more than happy. It might not be a huge amount to them, but they're like, who can I donate this to in my area? So even working with that refund point to, you know, have a poster up with your member number and things like that's really important. Get container savvy. So much confusion over what's in and what's out and all those sorts of things. So jump on our website, get your head around what is included in the scheme and what isn't. You'd be surprised. Sometimes people don't know things that are actually included. So things like little juice boxes are actually included in the scheme. So you can also use our app, our Containers for Change app, which launched last year. It's got a little barcode lookup on there. So if you're unsure, you can use that, and not just yourself, like educate everyone in your group so that they know. It makes such a big difference to the volume that you're getting back. Getting to know your local refund point, I have said that. So obviously Metro, there's heaps of options. We also have our new collect service that launched a few months ago. So Metro, there's tons of refund points now that will collect. So you can actually book a collection from you, which is really great if you have large volumes. Regional, not all areas are live yet with collect, but that will be coming. But certainly reach out to the refund point, whether you use that or not. I think it's really great to just have that relationship. You never know what they can offer you, and they do their own promotions and things like that of local groups too. Reach out to local businesses. So some of our bigger schools and community groups are regional, and a lot of them have partnerships with like the local pub, or, you know, often initially I think they're targeting venues where they know beverage containers are consumed and things like that. But there's some great work too with areas that are high volume over the summer holiday periods, and they put out bags and collection things. So they're tackling that influx of litter that comes into the area when people aren't disposing of things properly, but they're also using that as an opportunity to raise funds for their community group, which is in turn going to help their community in the future. So think about those things. Also, events tend to be high volume with drink containers. Use those opportunities to your advantage. And yeah, spread the word, as I said. Spread the word that you're doing Containers for Change. Talk about what you're using the money on. Share your story. Share your member number. Get people thinking about you when they go to donate. A lot of people want to be involved, and they're really not fussed about the money they may get from the containers. They just want to know that they're being recycled. So what we have that we can offer, so the last few years we've developed quite a lot of resources. We have a fundraising brand folder, so you can use that QR code, but I'll send this after with links as well. So in there's a whole lot of free to download items. So you can hop on there, download, you know, what you'd like to use. You can also, there are some little social media tiles where you slot in your member number and your group name, and you can then share that in on your Facebook, in a newsletter, that sort of thing. I'd also recommend logging into the member portal. There's a really great little screenshot you can take of your group's member number and it's even got a barcode that can be scanned at the refund point. So it just pulls up your group's details so they can donate. And sorry, that fundraising guide is definitely your go-to, I guess, for all our tips and things about fundraising with Containers for Change. It's also got some really good case studies in there. Free fundraising toolkits. So this is something we won't have around forever. At this stage, I'll be doing them to the end of June. But there's one per group, and you can actually get a box of resources, which it's sort of a sample of each thing, so that we're not giving out tons of materials that are going to go to waste. But there's a sample of resources, some bin stickers and things like that. Because the scheme is new in WA, the education and behaviour change piece is so important. So ensuring that when you're collecting, you have the signage really visible. You think about where you put bins so that they're put next to a general waste bin, so it encourages appropriate behaviours with how people dispose of their waste. So that the resources in there, including the fundraising guide and all the other things, they really help with that piece as well. You'll also get some collection bags. These can be really powerful for putting in areas where containers are collected, or giving out to your volunteers to collect at home. It can best be the thing that gets people started, because they're at home and they're like, oh, I'll put that in the bag. And then they think about taking it in later, but it just gets people involved and started. So you can register for a free fundraising toolkit. We do have a metro option as well for that. Sorry, a regional option for that. So yeah, get in touch if you haven't got one for your group yet. You don't have to be an incorporated group for that. You just have to have a member number for fundraising for your group. So and it can be new. So if you don't have one yet, you can hop on, sign up, and then you can fill out the EOI and get your toolkit sent out. I know that a lot of the Landcare groups, friends groups, environmental groups also do education in their communities as well, whether it's in schools, whether you're doing community education. I know it's often tacked on to what is done in Landcare. So I thought I'd share as well just a little on our new education resources. As I mentioned, we partner with Waste Sorted Schools to develop our new education guide. We also have a full a range of curriculum aligned modules with Cool Australia for years 5 and 6. We've got posters, we've got a separate education resource folder that you can go to for downloadable materials. If you're out there and you're doing other education in schools in your area, we would love you to share this with the schools as well. We have a lot of schools signed up and a lot doing great stuff, but some haven't yet. They wanted to get it started, and then maybe a teacher left and it's dropped off. So if you're able to add this on to the promotion that you're doing, please do, and reach out if we can support with that in any way. And yeah, that's kind of me. So get in touch if you'd like to. So that's our team email, get involved at warrrl.com.au. I should put the website address on there as well, which I said was containersforchange.com.au/WA. But yeah, I'd love to answer any questions if anyone wants to know anything else or anything specific about getting started with your group.
That was so awesome, Pippa. I learned so much from that, and what an amazing program, and so many great free resources for groups as well, which is fantastic. Unfortunately, Michael had to leave. He was very sorry about that, but he just did have a quick question, and he'll watch the recording later to get the answer. But he said some of our containers come in as collected litter from the foreshore, but how clean do they need to be returned into this scheme?
Yeah, that's as long as they're recognisable, I mean, and they only have to have a label on it if we're using what we call like a reverse vending machine where they get fed through. If they're just hand counted, which most facilities are, that's fine. Or even if they're done in bag drops and things like that. The only issue is if they're too old. So containers have to be from when the scheme launched onwards. There's not many around now, but I know I was doing a cleanup. It was actually with Keep Australia Beautiful with Shirley and Anna up in Port Hedland, and we were pulling out of the area there, the mangroves, a beer bottles that look very ancient.
Stuff. Yeah,
they look very ancient. But look, if you're not sure, put it in, because the refund point will filter it out. But yeah, just be aware those ones may not be if it's determined to be too old. If it's broken, in half or something, unfortunately we can't accept it. So it has to be intact. But yeah, I think in most cases, if it's just the labels off or something like that, that's okay.
Awesome, that's good to know. Carrie or Jenny, do you have any questions specific?
We do a lot of we pull out a lot of historic rubbish from our reserves, and in that there's a big like the big old brown beer bottles. Are they accepted?
I don't believe those larger ones are. I know the ones that you mean. But I can check on that, and I'll filter through a response to Casey, but I'm pretty sure they're not. I think they're just outside of the sizing. Yeah.
Alrighty.
But yeah, I'll double check.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Jenny, at all? No?
Am I allowed to ask a question?
Yeah, I guess
We'll
so.
let you, Rohan.
And I've got a comment as well. It's just to reiterate a point that Pippa made, is that 44% of litter is the volume of litter. So, and that's down now under 4%. So that's a massive decrease in the volume of litter. It's nearly half of our volume of litter has disappeared because of the CDS scheme. I think that's fantastic. And if you turn to look at the number of items, I think it was don't quote me on these figures, they're off the top of my head, but I think it was about 30% was of items of litter were cans and bottles that are now part of the thing, and that's down under 3% now. So it's had a massive impact on the amount of litter that's been around. But my question, Pippa, was with that 530 million items that are lost, the containers that are lost, where do you think that's happening? Are people putting them in the wrong bin, or are they being littered still and not being picked up? Or
Yeah. We think at home there's still some loss. So there's still some where there's people putting it in the general bin. Majority of what goes in your yellow bin at home, we actually batch pay the waste companies now or the local government. So they're incentivized to go through the yellow bin and pull out containers now. So that's really good. But if they go in the general bin, which you'd be surprised, some people do that. And there's also a huge volume of regional areas that don't have a recycling bin. So they're going to go in the general bin if they don't have containers for change locally, or, you know, and it's harder for regional areas if there's huge kind of geographic barriers and whatnot. So that's some of it, but that's minimal. We think the most of it is out of home and it is public space bins. So we're doing a lot with local governments.
That's my neck. I was going to ask that.
Also, anywhere that you are out and about, your behaviours are worse. We know that. So you may do it at home. You may sort your rubbish and you're really passionate, but you're out and about. Oh, I'll just put it in that bin, because that's the bin. So, and obviously all the local governments do the bins and things very differently. So the way we've tried to tackle some of that is with our container exchange points. So we give 10 initially free to any local government. I think we've got around 25 that have them now. But obviously that's, again, you know, it will help in some cases, but not others. And what they are is basically a cage. You may have seen them on the side of a public bin, and anyone can put their containers in there and anyone can take them out. So they're working really well, you know, as long as they're placed in the right spot. So it's a choice people are making. They're great. The other thing, yes, shopping centres, places like that, again, anywhere you're out and about, events. So some event companies doing containers for change, but are they capturing everything there? Not always, but that's an area we're focusing on. And another big one is mining. So mining, if they don't do containers for change, quite often the containers go in a big hole in the ground. So it is a huge, and the volume of containers consumed, because it is drink bottles, because it's hot, everything's provided. Yeah, so we have, there's some really great work going on at the moment with a whole lot of mines that are really keen to work with us. There's, in some cases, containers being backloaded back to Perth, and then they're coming to refund points here. There's a whole lot of stuff going on. And I think it's a double incentive for them, because they're getting pushed for sustainability targets and things like that, and improving the impact. But also they're all of them really that I'm aware of, they're also donating it back to either an internal employee kind of social group type thing, which often end up donating some of it to a charity, or it goes direct to a charity. So some big charities, you know, that a mine may choose them for a month or two, and they have this huge influx of funds come in. So it's just a double benefit for the mines. But yeah, there's a lot still going to those locations. But we all, you know, when you work for us, you end up looking in bins everywhere you go, and you'd just be so surprised.
Oh, I know that.
When you look in, and there's just full of 10-cent containers. So yeah, there's work to be done in those areas for sure.
Cool.
Yeah, I think with the ESG reporting that's coming in the 1st of July, there's going to be a lot of big corporations looking for ways to fulfill their ESG requirements, and this could potentially fill one of those gaps. It may even be worth, I'm just thinking about groups that kind of fringe mining communities or are in a mining community, actually reaching out to those organisations and the mining companies and you know, pitching this as an idea of ways that they might be able to get some support. What I really like about the Containers for Change is the opportunities for collaborations with your community. Just to give an example, I also work for Tungarall Blue Foundation, and I reached out to my local Dunsborough Containers for Change office, and they agreed to feature us for 2 months, and they provided a lot of promotion around our charity and who we are and what we do. So, and we found an influx in our scheme number during that time. So I can personally say how fantastic this whole thing can be for charities, and I'm certainly going to look into a WA Landcare scheme number because I don't think we have one yet, so that would be great. Also great to see some, one of my questions was going to be, do you have any social media tiles, etc., for promotion? But you're all over that, and that's a big barrier sometimes for these smaller groups, is putting together graphics, and we're not, the Landcare sector is not very good at shameless self-promotion. So if you can make those things as easy as possible, that will ensure that perhaps they can find time and not be so arduous to put something onto social media. So I appreciate that. Is there any last questions before we wrap up for today? No? Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for joining, ladies. We really appreciate it. And I am super excited because we've just developed a fantastic recorded resource for our entire WA Landcare community. So thank you so much to Pippa and Rohan. Really nice to see you both, and appreciate you taking time out of your busy day today. I will provide links, presentations, emails, all that kind of thing to every person that's registered today. And it will also have a copy of the recording as well, so you can refer to any slides or questions that have been answered. Our next Landcare Checks In is on Tuesday, the 30th of April, and we are collaborating with Regen WA and Perth NRM, discussing revegetation on farms. So I'm really excited about that one. And we also have a Landcare Build Skills session on Tuesday, the 23rd of April, that's focused on communities of practice. And we'll be joined by Lower Blackwood LCDC to talk about their community of practice talking after hours, which is kind of the Rolls Royce of COPs. So I'm really excited to be able to show the community what that looks like. And also Tam Connor from the Malone Institute about their national COP. So if any of these topics are of interest to you, please go over to our Humanitics and register. And hopefully I'll see you again soon in another Landcare event. So thanks so much for joining today.
Thank you.
Thanks, Casey. Thanks so much for organising.
No worries. Thanks, guys.